All right, hello microbiology students. This is Professor Hubbard. I just want to take a little bit of time to go through the Canvas site so that if you're new to Canvas, you can see how to use it. If you're not new to Canvas, either way, we can go through it just so you can see how we'll be using it in this class. So here you can see I'm at the home page. This is the page that should come up as soon as you click on our course on the dashboard. So you'll come to the welcome page. I do have the announcements, kind of the most recent announcement will always be up here. This is my little welcome letter saying who I am and that Mr. Gambill and I will be working together to approach this class. He'll be working in the lab with you guys and I will be online. And that's why I'm going through Canvas here with you so that you can see how we use it. So over here on the left-hand side, we have our navigation for the course. You can see that I have the announcements here. When you click on that, you'll see the most recent announcements, which I just put kind of a placeholder in here, just a welcome to our class. That is where I will be posting things, so you'll see here in just a moment in the modules that you'll need to set up to where you have notifications coming through when I make announcements, because you need to have that set up so that when I do make an announcement, oftentimes that's because it's something that's really important, so you want to make sure that you get that as soon as possible. I do have discussion boards set up in here. You are not required to do any discussion threads or any posts or anything like that in this class, but I do have these 3 discussion boards posted here. So this is the general questions discussion thread. So you can go in here and you can ask any general questions that you think might be helpful. It's kind of like a place to raise your hand in class and ask me, and we can kind of talk about it amongst the class. So this is a place where if somebody in the class asks a question, and you see that and you have the answer, I would hope that you would chime in on that. And so I can also answer as well. So we can kind of have a discussion here about whatever it is that's coming up for you. I do recommend that you subscribe to these so that you can get that information as well, so that you hear the latest information. This is the helpful resources discussion thread. This is where I would hope that as you are working through this class and looking into the different materials, and I know that oftentimes students are out there kind of looking up other YouTube videos and other websites and things, that you would post those resources here so that we can share them amongst the class and we can just get better resources out there for everybody, something that might help everyone. So I can subscribe to that as well. And then the last one is the My Mistake discussion board. This one's open throughout the semester. This is where if you see that I've made a mistake on something like a document and that's something I'd like to currently, or I would like to keep updating to make sure that I have the cleanest, most well-edited materials out there. So if you find an error, please do post it here so that I can go in and I can fix that. So errors on Canvas are good examples, things that are not posted correctly, typos in questions or answers in the quizzes and things like that. Those should all go here so that I can fix those things. And reported errors that are in here actually do receive extra credit at the end of the term. So it's just partial points for certain posts that you may make. So the majority of the time what we're going to be utilizing is the modules section over here. And so far I have our general course materials, which is all of the information that you'll be getting in week 1. And then I have week 2 posted as well, which is what will be due by the next time you come to class. So by the time you come to class the 2nd week. So let's take a quick look at the general course materials. What I have posted here are the things that you'll be going over in the class the first week. So here is the course syllabus that you'll be going over, some safety information documents that you'll be going over. So if you click on this, it's actually a page. And within the page, then I have the information here saying I recommend that you take time to read through this whole thing. You'll be going over it in class. I have things posted oftentimes as a .doc and a .pdf so that you can utilize the .doc if you'd like to edit it if you feel that's necessary. Or I have it as the PDF because oftentimes on mobile devices, if it's a .doc, it'll come up kind of shifted. Things don't look the same, and sometimes you can be missing images and things like that. So the PDF is really good for making sure everything stays in its place and making sure that you get all of your images. So I have the syllabus here as a .doc and a .pdf. If we go to the next item in that module, I just click next. These are the safety information documents you can see here. You'll be going over these in class. You'll get hard copies of them in class, but here are also electronic copies just in case you need them to remind yourself of anything. The next one is the Bio 206 Lab Notebook Guidelines. So again, you'll be going through this in class, likely the 2nd week of class, after you have purchased your composition notebook and bring that to class. So again, I have it posted here. You'll get it in class, but it's just so that you have an electronic copy that you can reference as you're working on your lab notebook throughout the semester. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but you will be prepping your lab notebook prior to each class with the lab that you'll be doing in that class. And when you do that, there's a certain way that you need to prepare your lab notebook, and these are the guidelines for that lab notebook, and exactly step by step what needs to go on each line for each lab. The next kind of general topic here are the required notifications and subscriptions in Canvas. So in order to be a part of this class, you do have to set up these required notifications. So some of the notifications here are the announcements that I have already mentioned. So you need to make sure that you get a notification when I have posted an announcement. Another notification is a submission comment that you need to have. So I do walk you through all of setting up all of those items, also making sure that you choose your way to contact, so you can add any personal email addresses you'd like or phone numbers if you'd prefer to get that as a text, and all of that here. Then you have the required subscriptions. So you noticed when I went through the discussion boards that I clicked on subscribe. And that's basically what you'll be doing for these subscriptions here. So making sure that you subscribe to our general questions and discussions thread. And then you can choose to subscribe to any other thread as well. I do recommend that you do that for the helpful resources discussion thread, and you can do it for the My Mistakes one as well. So if I go back to the module, I've kind of been clicking next here. So you've seen we've gone through the syllabus, safety information, lab notebook guidelines. We were just at the required notifications and subscriptions in Canvas. The next one is our Respondus Lockdown browser link. So if you have already gone through the syllabus, or when you do, you'll know that we need to use Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor for you to take your exams. The first quiz that you'll be taking, the Syllabus Quiz, is basically just a practice to make sure that you get the Lockdown Browser and the Monitor set up. After that, it will just be exams that you need to use this for. So you can read through that information in your syllabus. You can also click on the various links in the syllabus that have a nice little video that you can watch that describes the Lockdown Browser, how it works, and the Monitor, how it works, why we use it. And then there is also a student resource guide there that you can use if you're interested in more information about that. So in order to set that up the first time, you need to click on this link, or as I mentioned here, you can just go into the Syllabus Quiz to start taking it, and you can go through the process of setting up the Lockdown Browser on your computer. So this makes it so that you are unable to access any web pages or any other apps or anything like that on your computer while you're taking the exam. Since we are using the Respondus Monitor at the same time, you need to have access to a webcam so that it is recording you as you are taking the exam. So again, this will all be gone through in the syllabus, but then also as you're walking through this, it will prompt you on how to do these things, and it'll ask you to do things like make sure that you have an ID to show at the beginning of the quiz or at the beginning of the exam to show that it's you, it's your name, it matches up, and then I can make sure that that is actually you taking the exam. So anyway, here is the link for the Lockdown Browser. And then also it's linked in the first quiz that you need to take, which is the Syllabus Quiz that is due within the first week. So by the time you come into class during the second week. A note about the Lockdown Browser that I just learned today is that the Lockdown Browser, does not work with Chromebooks. So if you have a Chromebook, what I recommend is either to borrow or use a family member or friend's computer, go to a library, particularly the SC4 library, to take the exam there, or to go to the testing center to take the exam there. So if that is an issue for you, please do contact me within the first week, and we can try to make arrangements to make sure that you can go to the proctor instead if you're unable to download the Lockdown Browser. The next one is the Remind app instructions. This is also in the syllabus, but it's just another reminder. Another thing you need to do within the first week of classes is to set up this Remind on your phone or on your computer and make sure that you join our class. So this is another way to communicate with me, the best way to communicate with me and ask me questions as you are working through the material. After our Remind app instructions, I have some notes on how to submit lecture notes on Canvas, as well as some note-taking links. So let's take a look at that. So throughout the semester, when we get into the second module here, or the second note, or second week, you'll see that there are a series of things that we'll be doing each module, each week. You'll also see this as you have gone over the syllabus, or if you will be going over the syllabus, you'll see that we have certain things that are due each week. Some of those things require that you, for example, take notes. So as you are watching the chapter lectures, or as you're reading the text, you can choose to do either. You can watch the lectures that are posted if that's easier for you, or you can read the text if that's easier for you, or you can do both, supplement with one or the other. Either way, you need to take notes on the chapter that is due for the week, and then you need to submit those notes online. So I do recommend that you take notes as you go. They need to include all the important terms and their definitions, so that can be as you're moving through that chapter. It's important that you write down all the key things. I talk about a lot of those key things in the lectures, but if you're using the text, make sure that you're writing down those key things. You should also include headers, like part 1, or the name of the title, or the name of the section if you're using the text. And I do recommend that you make meaningful quality notes. You don't have to write down every single thing, so quality over quantity. However, you do need to touch on each of the topics, so it's important that they are still comprehensive. You can do this one of two ways. So one, you can hand write your notes. So you can do, take your notebook and you can sit and listen to the lectures or watch the lectures, and you can take notes that way, or use the text and take notes that way. When you do that, then what you would need to do is, after you've completed taking notes, handwritten notes, you would need to then take photos of your notes. Take photos of those notes and compile them into one single document. So a key to turning in things in this course is that each assignment needs to be one single document. That needs to be a Word document or a PDF document. So no images and no multiple documents submitted. So it's important that you take your notes, you take photocopies of each page of them, keep them in that order, make sure they're compiled into one document, and then you can upload it as one document to Canvas. Now there are a couple of ways to do that. One is using the Genius Scan app that I have a tutorial for. That's each semester, most students are using the Genius Scan app. It's free. It's really, really simple to use, especially once you get the hang of it. At first, it takes a little bit of learning, as most apps do, or anything does. And once you do that, then it's very, very simple. People are able to turn in things within moments. So I do recommend that. That's in the next link, or I think it's the next link, which is that YouTube tutorial for the Genius Scan app. Or you can do something just like importing and pasting and inserting those photos into Microsoft Word or Google document, and then turning them into a .doc or a .pdf and turning them in. Of course, the other option is just to type your notes. So if you're the type of person that prefers to do that, feel free to type your notes as you're watching the lectures or reading the text, and then all you have to do is upload that file to Canvas, as long as it's a .doc or a .pdf. So either way works for me, as long as when you are taking photos of your notes that they are clear. So make sure that the images, each of them are clear, because if I can't read them, if I can't make out what's written on there, then I can't give you points for it. So make sure that your images are clear, they're light enough, meaning they're not so dark that I can't read them. They're not blurry. Make sure that they're right side up as well. Very difficult to read and grade notes that are upside down, so make sure that they're right side up. Make sure that they're in the correct order as well. And then you can compile those and then turn them in one document. So I do mention that here using this Genius Scan app. Watch the posted video. And then in this case, if you want to just compile them into a file, I walk through how to do that with a Word document, if that's easier for you. I do mention down here again, when attaching files to any assignment, that all the pages must be combined into a single document. So make sure that you double check your file before you attach it, before you submit it for an assignment. Make sure that each of those images are nice and clear, they're nice and bright so I can see them and read them. Make sure that they're all right side up, because if they're not, if anything is upside down or sideways, if anything is unreadable, if it's too blurry, if it's not bright enough for me to see, then you will have points taken off. So make sure that you double check your files before you submit them. I do then always recommend that once you have submitted the file, that you log out of Canvas, you log out of your browser, kind of maybe even close down the device you're using. Then open it back up, open up your browser, open up Canvas or open up the Canvas app if you're doing it on your smartphone. And then look and see if that assignment has your submitted assignment there. So go into the assignment just like you're going to turn it in again, and then you should be able to see it as an attachment there, whatever it is that you titled that. So please be sure that you do that, because oftentimes people will submit something, and then what seems to happen is then they move from one internet connection to another. Maybe they get in their car and go somewhere, and then the file doesn't actually finish attaching, and therefore nothing is turned in. So or it's just dropped. It's not that they're moving anywhere. So sometimes people have no idea because they've just been sitting at their home since they submitted it, but for whatever reason it didn't actually get uploaded. So make sure that you go back in and you check that it is always there. This note down here is just saying that you are unable to both attach a document to turn it in and write in the text box that would go to me when you turn in the assignment, that you have to do one, go back in, and then do the other. That said, there's really no reason to type in the text box. So please don't type something like, here are my notes, or even the name of the notes or anything like that, because I get all of those as separate messages to my inbox. And so if every student does that, I have hundreds then emails of just saying, this is my assignment. So please, unless it's necessary, don't type in the text box, just attach your assignment and then make sure it's there later, and then I'll get that assignment. I did put some tips down here, some links to different things if you want to try out different ways to take notes, or if it's been a while since you've taken notes. There's some really good things down here if you would like to check them out. So going back to our modules here, we were at submitting lecture notes on Canvas, and we'll see where you'll do that in just a moment. And then this is the Genius Scan app tutorial that I was talking about. So you can watch this. I uploaded on YouTube, and it walks you through exactly how to use the tutorial and exactly how you can make sure that it's bright enough. You can change it so that it's a real photo versus a black and white photo, so that you can shift it so that it's not sideways. All of those things are in that tutorial video. So please do check that tutorial video out. The next one and the last one here in our week 1 materials is the syllabus quiz. So the syllabus quiz is, of course, asking you questions based on the syllabus and based on things that you need to know for the course. But this really is not only a way to kind of pull out the key points of the syllabus, but also to make sure that you have set up Lockdown Browser and the Respondus Monitor correctly, and that you've gone through it before the first exam, so that once it comes to the first exam, you've already done the browser, you've already set up the webcam, you already know how it works, and it'll be very smooth to go into exam 1. So no, the rest of the quizzes do not require the browser and the monitor, just this one as a practice run, and then the rest are just the 5 exams throughout the semester, and that's it. So when you click on the syllabus quiz, it will tell you that it requires Respondus browser or Lockdown Browser, and then there's some important informational things here, things like avoid wearing baseball caps, make sure that you're looking at the camera, ways to kind of prop up the computer if it's a laptop, propping it up so that your face is where it's supposed to be, all of those things. Down here you can click Take the Quiz. Once you do that, it says, remember you need to have Lockdown Browser. You can click on this, and then it's going to bring you to downloading Lockdown Browser. If you've already done that, then you can just get out of this and then go into Lockdown Browser, and that's how you'll take the quiz. You'll take the quiz by going into Lockdown Browser, then Lockdown Browser is going to connect you into Canvas. So if you're working on Canvas and you decide, okay, now it's time for me to take exam 1, for example, you can X out of Canvas, open up Lockdown Browser from your desktop, and then it will prompt you to sign into Canvas, and then you'll be able to access the exam that way. But you do need to download it first, so there's a link here for you to do that. And then once you do that, then you can do that through the Lockdown Browser to take that particular quiz. Again, any other quiz is just going to be here in Canvas. This is the only quiz that requires that, and it's just for setting up. Do note that the due date for this is on January 21st, which is next Tuesday. All of your assignments are going to be due at 1 p.m. the next Tuesday. So you'll be assigned homework each week. That homework is going to be due before you walk into class the next week. So You'll have until next Tuesday at 1 p.m. That's when it closes down and you'll no longer be able to access that. So that is one assignment, one homework assignment that's due by week 2. So let's take a look at week 2. This is what each module hereafter will typically look like. I have it split up into our lecture videos for that week, the lecture notes, which is where you'll be turning in your assignments, turning in your notes, the homework / in-class assignments. So this is where either if you have a homework assignment, it will be posted here and then the points associated with that, or it'll just be your in-class points. So in the syllabus where it talks about if you come to class late often or more than 10 minutes, your points will be deducted. This is where those points will come from, is the in-class assignments or the homework section. So not every week will have homework, but most of them will have the in-class assignments points associated with it. The next one is the quizzes, or the quiz. This week we happen to have 2 chapters that you need to cover. Several weeks it's just one this week. So we have 2 quizzes, chapter 1 quiz, chapter 2 quiz. Then we have the section for the lab materials. So not only the lab documents, which you'll be using to prepare for the next week, but also where you'll be submitting your results and then submitting your study questions. And then for some of the weeks, I also have additional helpful materials. So for this week in chapter 1 and chapter 2 specifically will be going over things like the different types of microscopes, different types of lenses, how they work. So I did post an additional lecture here, a Khan Academy lecture that you don't have to watch, but if you are confused about these things, you can definitely watch. A website here, it's a virtual microscopy website, which not only does it go over each of the microscopes, but you can actually use them online, which is really, really neat because they have some really cool and interesting things to look at. And then this last one is the negative or the capsule stain technique video. This one actually is going to relate to a lab that you'll be doing. So you can come back here and watch this so that when you get to doing a negative stain or a capsule stain, you'll have an easier time doing it because it's a little bit different than some other stains. So if we go back to the top here, as I said, each week has the lecture videos for that week. Since this next week, by next Tuesday, you have chapter 1 and chapter 2 done or due. I have that separated out here. So the chapter 1 lecture videos and the chapter 2 lecture videos. So if you click on it, you can see I actually have it split up even further so that they're a little bit shorter. It's not, hours and hours of lecture at a time. However, they do total hours and hours of lecture. So note that you should be studying at least 13 hours outside of class time on this material. So we have the 1.1 lecture, 1.2, and 1.3, which is how it's split up in the text. So you'll want to watch each of those. This is where I was mentioning you'll want to put those headers. So make sure that you put down chapter 1.1 and then take your notes there. Then chapter 1.2 and take your notes there, etc. Then we have our chapter 2 lecture videos split up the same way, and this is how each of the weeks are. So chapter 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. So make sure that you're watching each of those. Now do note here we have the 2 chapters that are due next week. And we have 2 different assignment sections here. So you'll submit all of your chapter 1 notes to this assignment here and all of your chapter 2 notes to this assignment here. So note that this is also due next week, again, before 1 o'clock. So by 1 o'clock when you walk into class. If I click on this assignment, when you're submitting your notes each week, you can see here when it's due by, how many points are associated with it, how you need to submit it, so uploading a file. Remember these different file types when it's available until. Also, I have some notes here just to remind you for the submission guidelines, which are basically just what we spoke about. Making sure that you take all the images, compiling them into one file, and submitting that one file. So what you want to do is click Submit Assignment, and then down here it's just like you would attach a file to an email. So you'll choose the file from your computer, and then you'll click Upload, and then you'll see it here, and then you'll click Submit Assignment. And then again, like I said, I would recommend backing out and going back in to make sure that you see that the assignment is actually posted there. So that's how our chapter notes will be each week. So remember, one single document based on those lecture notes. We already talked about the homework and in-class assignments. Sometimes there will be homework, sometimes it'll just be in-class assignments, sometimes it'll be both. Here we have our quizzes for the week, so one based on Chapter 1, one based on Chapter 2. Also due next week, because every week you'll have the lecture notes due by the next week, and you'll have the quizzes due by the next week. So if you click on the quiz, as I mentioned, the only one that you need to use the lockdown browser and Respondus Monitor with is the first one, the Syllabus Quiz, and that's just for practice. And all quizzes you can take as many times as you want, including the Syllabus Quiz. So I do recommend that you go in and you take quizzes over and over and over again, just for practice, just so you keep seeing those questions, just so it becomes more solid in your head. So the same things up here, it tells you the points, the number of questions, time limit. There is no time limit, and then you can take it as many times as you want. So you just click take the quiz, and then it's multiple choice, fill in the blank, all of those sorts of things, and you'll take it here. Make sure that at the end you click submit. And then as it mentions, you can take it as many times as you would like until you get the score that you would like, until the due day and time, which is always the next week by 1 p.m. The next section is the lab section. That will always consist of the lab document or documents, and then underneath there, the results and the study questions. So if we look at the Lab 2 or Week 2 Lab 1 documents, it's a little bit different than the entire rest of the semester. And that's because you don't have your notebook yet, you haven't gone through how to set up your notebook, and this lab, the microscopy lab, should not be in your lab notebook. So don't write anything up in your lab notebook for this lab. I did post electronic versions of all the things that you will be receiving in class next week, so that you have it and you can access it. You don't have to print it out. There will be copies in class for you. In future classes, however, this will just have the document that you need to use in order to prepare your lab notebook ahead of time. So that will always be posted as a separate lab document. As you can see here underneath the lab header. And then we have our results, which is separate from the study questions. So results, you will be using a device in class in order to take pictures of your results. So here it mentions submit the photos of your lab results here. Again, if it's more than one photo, you need to combine them into a Word or PDF document and then submit that one single document. So I'm going to click over here into an example. This is just our Lab 6, so it's a little ways down the line. And it starts with some background information, which is important for when you're doing your lab notebook. When you're setting that up ahead of time, you'll have to write a little introduction blurb that includes this information here in your own words. You'll write what's needed, you'll write the cultures you need, you'll then write out the procedure as well, so that you can bring the lab notebook to class with you and use the procedure in the lab notebook. Now what we're talking about here is how you will be submitting results. Because I won't be in the lab with you, you need to ensure that you are comfortable with submitting things to Canvas and using photos to do that. So in this example, if you look up here, this was culture transfer techniques and isolation of pure cultures. So in this one, what we're doing is we're transferring a bacterial culture to a different type of media. And then once that's done, it will be incubated until the next week, or 24 to 48 hours, and then you'll get that result the next week. So the day that you get the results, you will then go to these results, and you, in this example, will be examining the broth tubes, the agar deep tubes, and the agar slant tubes. You'll complete this chart. At that time, you'll know what we're doing here, but just for illustration purposes, here you'll be completing this chart, and then it mentions take a photo of the completed chart along with the slant, the deep, and the broth tubes. So you can hold them or lay them down near the chart. And then what you'll do is you will post them to the assignment in Canvas that's labeled Lab 6 Results. However, this is part 1 of a 2-part lab here. So you'll have this complete, you'll be holding the test tube and things like that here. You'll take a picture of this section. Then, this is our second part, isolation of pure cultures. Then when you get to this one, here are your results for this section. You will answer this question here, answer this question here, do all of this down here, meaning you'll draw on this, then you'll actually place your agar plate right here, and you'll take a picture of this whole thing here. So your results, questions answered, and your actual materials. And the reason that you are turning these things in this way is because then I can see what you're doing. I can see your actual materials. I can see your actual growth. So make sure that's visible in your picture so that I can grade that. And as is highlighted here, it says take a photo of your agar plate and post the assignment in Canvas labeled Lab 6 results as one file with the previous results. So that means that the picture that you took back here and the picture that you take here need to be in one file and then submitted to that results tab that we were just looking at here. So you'll submit the assignment and submit the results. Now in the lab I skipped over the study questions, and that's because those are separate. If we look at the study questions are here, and they're, again, since it's a two-part lab, we have study questions for the first part, and we have study questions later for the second part. For the study questions, you can print this out if you want and then handwrite them in. You can use this and type them in, or you can use a plain document and type them in, or you can use a plain piece of paper and write out the answers. Whatever way works best for you, just make sure that you have the question on there and the answer to the question on there. You'll do this individually. So the lab results for some of the labs where it is indicated is group work, and each lab member can turn in the same document for the results. However, the study questions must always be different. So study questions are always an individual effort. So if two students have the same answer, word for word same answer, then you will be docked points for that. Make sure that it's your own answer in your own words from your own brain. So here you would answer these two questions, then you would take a picture of those two questions and their answers, and then same thing down here. You can answer these questions and then take a picture. Combine those two, and that's what you will be submitting to our lab, or week 2, lab 1 study questions. So each week that will be the same. You'll take pictures of your results in the laboratory, combine those into a file, and submit those. And then later on, it doesn't have to be in the lab, it can be after lab. You can then answer those study questions, take pictures of the study questions, and submit the study questions. Again, noting that the study questions are an individual effort. So then that brings us to our additional and helpful materials, which we already went over. So again, each week is going to be set up in the same way. So we have our lecture videos that you can access, the lecture notes that you'll be submitting, the homework and in-class assignments, the quizzes that are due before your next week's class, the document that you will need to use to prepare your lab notebook, the results that you will be submitting weeks later, depending on the type of results they are, because remember, you will be setting up an experiment, and then oftentimes it will need to incubate, so you won't be seeing the results until the following week. Once you get the results, then you have a week to turn those in. So it ends up being about 2 weeks removed from when you first got the document and set up the lab. Then you have the study questions due as well after you have seen your results. And then some weeks have the helpful materials. So a couple of things just to note. Again, make sure everything's submitted in one single file. Make sure that the photos are always right side up, legible. I can see whatever it is I'm supposed to see, whether it's growth or color or so make sure that you don't turn in something in black and white. Sometimes the Genius Scan app will switch it to black and white. Make sure it's an actual photo so I can see the colors and things like that. If you have any questions, you can always text me via Remind as you are uploading these things and getting the hang of using the Canvas site. So please do contact me and I can help you and walk you through anything. So that is what our typical module will look like. Once we get through to chapter 2 or to week 2, then the next module will open. So the week 3 module will then open underneath here, and then you'll have those chapters that you'll be addressing. The next tab over here, and the last one that I do just want to mention, is the grades tab. So of course this is where all of your grades will be throughout the semester. So it will just keep a running total as we are moving through the semester. So you can see here all of the due dates for the things that are due by next week. With the exception of the results and study questions that we just talked about are typically a couple weeks removed. You can see the score that you get when there's a score there. If there's a dash there, that just means I haven't graded it yet. So just please be patient and I'll get it graded as soon as possible. And how many points it's out of. And then you can see down here that there will be a total tally as well. So it'll have the number of points that you have out of the number of points that are the maximum at that time. And then you can keep track of your score as we are moving along. And that, of course, is all discussed in the syllabus as well. The People tab here, I'm not going to click on it, but that is where you could email your fellow students. So their SC4 email information is there. You can do that. And then Office 365 is something that's offered through SC4. You have access to utilizing things and making things like Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and things like that. So if you don't have that on your computer, I do recommend that you use the Office 365. You can just log in and then you can use that on the computer. You get it free with being an SC4 student. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our Canvas site. One quick thing, I already mentioned that getting a hold of me is best through the Remind app via texting me. Secondly, emailing me is the next best way, or is a similar best way. I do ask that you email me through Canvas, which would be right here. The reason I ask you to email me through Canvas, so coming into Canvas, clicking on inbox, and then sending me a message that way, is one, it already has my email address in there, so you won't make a mistake spelling it. You just do the drop down and it will be right there. But two, because then it keeps a running tally here of the interactions between myself and you. So if we ever need to look something back up or see if something was attached or wasn't, I can easily go into Canvas and just click on your name. It has all of our back and forths on there. Versus if you or I are going to try to search through our emails, sometimes that's missed, sometimes it comes up in a weird order. So it's really easy just to kind of keep everything organized by emailing me through here, through the inbox in Canvas. All right, so again, if you have any questions, feel free to text me, feel free to email me, and I will answer those to the best of my ability. And I look forward to a great semester.